Local and live. Covering Franklin and Washington counties, it's Let's Talk TriState.
Welcome back to Let's Talk TriState. Joining us now, we have General Manager for Cumberland Valley Tree Service Landscaping. This is Evan Brumfield. Evan, how are you, my friend?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing great. Glad to have you. I love when these happenstance interviews come up because actually I'm not going to say happenstance. This is meant to be because I rarely get super excited about one. Yours is one. Just came through, I think, yesterday. And it really speaks to what I need and think I may need, my wife and I having just bought a property. So we have Cumberland Valley Tree Service and Landscaping. You guys are certified arborists.
And I'm board certified.
There
so
you
we've
go.
got like the whole gambit.
Yeah. So I'm going to have some questions for you that, as it relates to my personal property, things I'm going through. As we go through the questions I already have for you, and maybe they'll just unveil themselves as we go along.
Let's do it.
Okay?
That's what people always pick on me and say, if you're at a party, you can always talk to Evan, because if you have trees, we have something to talk about.
That's exactly right. I love that. All right, so your first question is, now this time of year it might surprise some people. Winter is actually a great time to do tree pruning. We often think of that when the trees and the bushes and everything that are flowering, but that may not always be the case. It doesn't have to be the case.
That's right. So I'm going to take that a little bit deeper, and so people say pruning kind of loosely. If I asked you what pruning was, you probably would say, I don't know what it is, but you use it in a sentence a lot. You know, we say we should do it in the winter. So pruning is, by definition, the removal of material from a tree to achieve a goal. Goal usually being like structure, health, appearance, stuff like that. So when you meet with one of us, the first thing we're going to try to do is find out what your goal is. Is it, target protection, appearance of a tree, maybe something that's ornamental? We're going to find that goal first, and then we prune the tree to meet the goal.
Okay.
Storm worthiness on the tree, reducing risk of failure of limbs, things like that. So pruning, definition, good now. Goal, prune to meet the goal. So pruning then makes wounds on a tree. It's just an inevitable part of the process. When you cut a tree, you open it up for decay and insects to basically enter into the tree's system. Trees do a good job about protecting themselves with their bark and core cambium. They have a beautiful shell on them, like a turtle. But the whole way around. And so when we cut, or if Mother Nature tears a limb off, that's opening up the tree for possible infection, for decay and things like that. So pruning creates wounds, systematic, made by arborists. And so now we're going to answer the question as to why now? Why not summer? Why now? So we use the word winter. I'm going to say dormant or inactive period for trees. So trees are dormant right now, not to make them humanoid, but they're sleeping more or less. They're not photosynthesizing. They're not doing much right now. They're just hanging out, waiting for spring. So when we make wounds via pruning to meet a goal, we want those wounds to be made in a period of time in the year when the trees are not active. There's no flow up or down in the tree's time. A tree's time frame is really going to be about 3 parts. We're going to say the spring flush. That's going to be like your March, April, when things start getting pretty, Mother's Day, all the way up until about July 4th. July 4th, around about that time period here, is going to be your change to summer, kind of packing a suitcase for your trip. They're going to start putting storage in their root systems and really winding down for the year. So trees grow a lot in the spring, summertime, early summer. Then they're going to climax and slow down going toward fall, Thanksgiving, Christmas time. We're going to enter our third period for a tree, which is the dormant season. That's going to be, like I say, right around Christmas, all the way up until the beginning of March. And that is your window of really healthy pruning because nothing's going on. Along with nothing going on, you have no real insects and disease that are out to attack. When you make a fresh wound on a tree via a cut, whether it's a tiny little cut or a bigger one, it's going to be like blood in the water for a shark, but for these beetles and other insects, they love a fresh pruning cut. And again, whether you prune or you say, I'm not going to prune, and then Mother Nature rips a limb off or something, that's a big wound. So there's no way around it. You're either going to prune systematically or you're going to wait for Mother Nature to do it, through wind or ice load. So our job is to try to prevent unmanaged wounding on a tree, such as, again, failures, whole stems pulling off, something like that. So we are pruning the tree to prevent that. And so nonetheless, though, small wounds, dormant season, nothing else is out. Again, not to make the trees humanoid still, but like when you go in for surgery, as a person, they put you to sleep. and then you are pruned. The surgeon does this work, and you wake up later, and you're ready to start the healing process. You've been cleaned up. The work's been done. That's kind of like what a tree does in the summertime.
You answered my next question. Because my thought was, if nothing's going on, if no systems are going on, it seems kind of counterintuitive, to the simple mind, not a certified arborist such as yourself, to where you're going to put a wound on a tree that it is not capable of healing right now. But to your point, we're just a couple months removed from when it's going to be able to really put forth the resources, and that I would assume, then based on what you're saying. That kind of goes to the top of the list when the tree starts to come around.
First thing it does in the spring, because again, so from dormancy, we're getting that spring flush.
Yeah.
Highest point of the year when the tree is growing the most.
Right.
So the tree will tell you, it talks to you. If you have long shoot elongation and good health, it's going to be in that early summer, springtime, and that's when the tree is going to start sealing. You also mentioned something that, as any good arborist would always kind of cringe at. Nothing wrong, but trees don't heal, they seal.
Okay.
So humans, mammals, we heal. Our bodies remove decay tissue, remove infection. Once that's removed, typically, then the sealing process starts. Scar tissue, the whole 9 yards. Trees do not do that first part. Trees only grow over decay. So once they get a wound on them and decay sets in, the only tree's hope to survival is to close it off and get bigger.
Okay.
So the faster that you can make that process happen via good cuts, good time of the year, things like that, then the tree gets a leg up.
Okay, gotcha. So when we're coming into this time of year now, we're in the prime time for the pruning, as you've talked about. What are some things now, obviously there's general maintenance. So we could call, Cumberland Valley Tree Service and say, hey, just want you to come out, take a look, let us know what we might need. But are there any markers that we can look for in our trees where we say, you know what, if it has that, if you see this, you need to call tree service?
Yeah, kind of some of your obvious ones: bark falling off, things that look different on a tree, branches that are sagging, tips of the tree, the top of it doesn't look right anymore. Maybe it has moved. We've had some pretty bad winds here recently, and it's not even the winds that are like one and done. It's these nights that it's been 50 and 60 mile per hour from like an easterly side, and it's blowing in an opposite direction all night long. Trees get rocked, and they tend to go back as long as the wind doesn't stay in them. But when they get rocked up and then the wind just keeps pushing and pushing and pushing, then they go over. And some trees don't go over the whole way. They'll take a beating for all night long, and then they'll kind of sit back. But they're not quite right. You'll see soil that's been pulled up, the ground cracking, things like that is exactly what I'd be looking for on a tree that's been moved.
Now, we often hear about a dead tree removal, and obviously getting the trunks out and all that kind of stuff. Are dead trees always dangerous?
Oh, always. That's a big word. Although I think I'm going to stick with that one. Dead trees are unstable. Okay. They are already in the decay process, and they are not sealing, and they're not growing. So from the tips down, they're going to start to fail. Some dead trees are more brittle than others, depending on species. Like the ash trees, the reason we push for them so much is they're like kind of like a glass bottle. They're really rigid, but as soon as you crack them, they just explode. And there's not really much of a warning before that. Like a plastic cup, would kind of creak and go before it failed. It'll talk to you. Ash trees don't. They'll fail anywhere in the trunk. So we were like, they have to go. Oak trees, not as much. So again, not to get too much into the species, but in general, if you have a dead tree and it's near something valuable, it's a high threat.
Now, my wife and I, on our property, the one tree that I think is kind of the focal point, I believe, is one that was left to grow without being managed, as most trees do.
Yeah.
It is a larger tree, but it's almost like it's kind of two trees in one, and I believe that is from not managing. You get shoots and things like that. So, trees should grow straight up and then eventually lead to the branching.
Well, they should have one trunk, like a one concentric trunk. Should be one piece, and then they have scaffold limbs that come from that. That's the ideal. And you just go to the woods. You can take a red maple in someone's front yard and the same exact tree in the forest, two different growth patterns. The forest is where a tree would come from naturally. So by hiring arborists, we're always trying to prune that tree to keep it in the forest setting. We want it to be that nice straight trunk. Doesn't have to be cleaned off. Just should have more of the tree's diameter ratio should be in the main trunk, with a nice set of scaffold limbs from the ground up, per se, or wherever you want it, 8 feet off the ground.
Let me ask you this, Evan. Then what happens in the forest? Which
Yeah.
we both agree, and I understand that a forest is its ideal habitat. But what happens in a forest that doesn't, or vice versa, happen square center of their front yard?
Perfect question. So in the front yard, it's all about sunlight. Sunlight drives growth. So when the trees are in the forest, they're all thick and they corral each other. Have you ever gone hiking? It's all shade inside the forest. No light equals no growth. A leaf has to photosynthesize in order for it to produce energy, and a limb must produce energy for the tree to keep it. There's no backwards energy flow in a limb of a tree.
Sure.
So if you're a low limb in the forest, and this is the year you start to not produce for the main body of the tree will cut you off.
Okay.
You're done. Which is the total natural part. A lot of times you go into forest, like a pine grove was a great example. You go into a bunch of white pines, you go in there, all the limbs on the trunk are dead. That's not a bad thing. That means the tree is laying new tracks every year, and the limbs that are below no longer are needed. They were once the top of the tree, now they're not. So in your front yard, there is no corral system in your front yard. Every limb that ever grew from that tree is getting sunlight, and it's pretty much always going to keep growing. That's why you have limbs that big, this high off the ground, growing 40 feet out.
Yeah.
Because it's just doing whatever it wants. It's making energy for the tree. The tree's like, sure, stay
Go
on.
do your thing, right?
Stay on,
Wow,
until one day it rips off.
Yeah.
So as a young tree, adolescent up to maybe 20 feet or so, we can come in and make big cuts on those to help slow down those codominant stems, keeping the tree's shape. Once a tree gets to be too big or too mature, like the one maybe you're talking about, where it has two full main stems, you say, well, now what do you do? Well, now we introduce, hardware. Things like cabling, bracing, big rods that go through the trunk, and we try to counteract the defects with hardware.
Because I think what it does is instead of the trees growing straight up, it's almost like they're just, and eventually, what's going to happen
They're competing. They are competing like two separate trees. They share a stump, they share a root system, but they are fighting.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about value. Does Cumberland Valley Tree Service Landscaping have any kind of pricing incentive for this time of year, since it is so important to use this time of year?
So a couple of things with this time of year. We want to push the importance, and so money talks, right? I'll wait for the winter for a discount, you know? And the second part is our workload. We like to stay busy. We do year-round employment for our certified arborists and other qualified trainees. And to help do that, we have to fill our schedule. In order to do that, we do offer a 10% discount to our residents.
Okay, very good. Now, for anyone who's interested in scheduling an evaluation or pruning service, as it were, I'm assuming we need an evaluation first. You're not just going to go in cold and say, you know what, this is exactly what we're going to do, and all of a sudden the chainsaws come out.
We need your goal first.
Yep, okay. And then, so if someone wanted to do that, what's the best way to get started with your team?
Phone call or reach out by online application. We have a lot of great ways to reach out.
Now let's, as we wrap this up, I want to make sure that, I've gotten my questions answered as well. Is there, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, so let's see. You could tell me any number what I'm about to ask, and I will believe you. But in the average setting of someone's yard that has a wooded area, smaller, and I'm using, obviously my mind goes to where I am. So about a third of my acre and a half is wooded area. What percentage of that, if left unkept, is probably needing to be removed? Or is it different? I'm sure it's different for every scenario, but is there kind of a general, like, you're going to need some removal?
I don't know that removal is going to really be at the forefront of that.
Okay.
Trees, like you mean like in a forested area, kind of. So trees in the middle are going to be corralled like we would normally see in the forest. It's the ones on the fringes that are getting that full sun. They're the ones that are going to start, it's called phototropism, growing toward the light. They're going to be growing out further. They're going to have the most really extraneous, overextended limbs in the front yard toward the house, typically. So those are the ones we would look to prune back to make them safer, but keeping trees in a group is always the preferred method. They grow with each other, and they are, every year they add diameter and root flare depending on the stress that they feel, which is wind, typically, some kind of environmental stress. Same thing as you and I lifting weights, You lift more weights than me, I think. So.
Maybe. Not right now, but at one point perhaps.
Anyways, so trees do the same thing. So you stress a tree, it grows to counteract that stress. The trees in the center of that forested cluster have not seen the wind like the ones on the edges.
Right, okay.
So the ones in the middle are not going to be nearly as structurally sound or ready for the wind if you were to open everything up and leave just them, you normally have your blowovers and failures at that point.
Oh.
So if you've got a group of trees, the goal is always trying to keep them as a group.
Nice. I love that.
Some people do really hate the trees touch. It's okay for trees to touch. Like,
Yeah,
that's
right.
how it works, you know.
Yeah.
Go hiking. That's how it works. So.
Yeah, we seek out, camaraderie, and we're very social
Yeah.
people. But don't let the trees touch.
Yeah.
Forget about that, right?
That's right. Yeah.
We've been talking with Evan Brumfield. He is the GM of Cumberland Valley Tree Service and Landscaping. And this is one of those interviews that I could talk to you for hours.
I know. There's so many rabbit holes.
I was gonna bring in pictures and diagrams and all and go through and look at that. But we'll have you come out and we'll take a look at my property. Maybe while you guys are out there, we can do a supplemental piece.
There you go. We'll do
And
it
I
live.
can
Yeah.
shoot some video and we can do some lives out there. Appreciate
That'd
that.
be
Hey, thanks for being here, my friend.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you. And as always, we thank you for joining us on Let's Talk TriState.
If you'd like to be featured on an upcoming episode of Let's Talk TriState, call 717-597-9200 or email letstalk@921thegoat.com.